This video will explain how to operate with multiple components in Gemini. This explanation will explain how to set the generic articulated robot, robot floor track and positioner 2-axis components registered to the eCatalog to operate together. First, we will place the components on the 3D world. Go to the eCatalog window, Models by Type, Robots, Visual Components, and drag and drop a generic articulated robot onto the 3D world. Go to Models by Type, Robot Positioners, Visual Components, and drag and drop a robot floor track onto the 3D world. Then, go to Models by Type, Robot Workpiece Positioners, Visual Components, and drag and drop a Positioner 2-axis onto the 3D world. To link the components so that they operate together, you first need to connect the interfaces of all the desired components. There are two ways that components can be connected, physically and remotely. First, we will explain how to connect the components physically. Go to the Home tab, Manipulation, and click PNP. The PNP command is used for bringing a selected component closer to another and connecting their interfaces. When this command is enabled, selecting a component that can be connected physically will display a triangle mark. The triangle mark, called an interface, is a connection point for connecting components with other components. There are two types of triangle marks, yellow and green. The yellow triangle mark indicates where the component can be connected to another component. The green triangle mark indicates where the component is physically connected to another component. Select the generic articulated robot and drag it towards the pedestal of the robot floor track. When dragged close to the pedestal, a green arrow will be displayed pointing to the pedestal. This green arrow is displayed when a dragged component can be physically connected to the nearby component. When the dragged component is dropped here, this component will be automatically connected and the triangle mark will change to green. By selecting and moving the robot floor track, the connected generic articulated robot will also move. The generic articulated robot will also move if the pedestal of the robot floor track is selected and dragged with Interact under Manipulation selected. By selecting and dragging the generic articulated robot with PNP under Manipulation selected away from the robot floor track, these components will be physically disconnected. Next, we will explain how to connect remote components. Go to Connect and click Interfaces. Select a component on the 3D world. This will show an interface for remote connection. Select the Positioner 2-axis on the 3D world. The Positioner 2-axis is used when attaching parts to surfaces and when moving parts by robot movement. In this explanation, we will use this without attaching parts. Connect the robot interface and connect workpiece positioner. You can connect the components by dragging the circle next to the interface name on the 3D world to the connection point of the interface you want to connect to, or from the Connect Interfaces window on the right by setting a connection source component to component, and selecting the connection destination using Connect Interfaces through this list. You can also connect remote components using the interfaces used for physical connections. From the Connect Interfaces window, change the setting of component to Generic Articulated Robot. Select the Show Non-Abstract Interfaces checkbox at the bottom of the Connect Interfaces window to show the interfaces used for physical connections. Using the same procedures as when connecting the Positioner 2-axis, connect the robot positioner of the generic articulated robot and the robot interface of the robot floor track. Go to Connect and click Interfaces. By selecting and dragging the robot floor track, the connected generic articulated robot will also move. Clicking Interact under Manipulation and dragging the robot floor track pedestal will also make the generic articulated robot move. After confirming it moves, click PNP under Manipulation again, and drag the generic articulated robot to the robot floor track pedestal to connect them. By doing this, we now have the three components operating together. Finally, we will define motions to the components. Go to the Program tab, click Jog under Manipulation, and then select the generic articulated robot on the 3D world. Under Joints in the Jog window on the right, the joint value of each axis in the generic articulated robot can be set. Positioner 2-axis enables you to set joint value for the Positioner 2-axis arm. Robot Floor Track sets the position of the robot floor track pedestal. After changing each setting value, go to the Program Editor window and click Point-to-Point Motion Statement. This statement commands the robot to move to a defined position when the simulation starts. Change each value from the Jog window, and with the same procedure, add a statement to the Program Editor window. After adding the statement, click Reset to return components to their initial position and play the simulation. All three components can now each be operated using only the generic articulated robot settings. This concludes the explanation on how to operate with multiple components. Thank you for watching.